Thanks, Maggie. And so I'm going to add just one little bit to continue the story Maggie was telling about the history of HealthTO. She mentioned 9 months ago is when I left my role as Chief Innovation Officer with a global consulting firm and started my own business. That happens to be almost exactly when I attended my first HealthTO event. Last May, met Maggie, thought this was a great event. I've been at every one of them since. And I will say that that has been some form of inspiration into the work I'm doing now. So, as Maggie says, I come at this from a fairly different angle around healthcare, but I've been in this business for an awful long time at this point. Over 20 years is the biggest number I'm going to put on the page. Been working with large employers across Canada to manage their wellness, benefits, healthcare, disability, retirement programs over that period. Have spent a lot of time in my innovation role working with the HR departments and employers and insurance companies to find the new health solutions that they were looking for. Now my business is to work with the health solutions to find their way into that employer market. So I'm going to talk a little bit about some lessons learned within that experience over the last few months of talking to both the innovators as well as the companies that are buying their products. First piece, my experiences in the private healthcare sector in Canada. Private healthcare ecosystem, the B2B healthcare sector. I'm still trying to put the right term on it. It is 30% of the Canadian healthcare system. 70% of the Canadian healthcare system goes through the public, 30% is handled through private insurance or through individuals. It's a significant piece of healthcare delivery in this country, even though we think of it as being a public healthcare system. $32.2 billion a year is spent on private healthcare insurance in Canada. The clicker does work. There we go. $12.1 billion for prescription drugs alone. Another $8.8 billion for disability insurance. The number I'm throwing up there now, 22 months, doesn't fit with the rest, but one of the things that, if there's two things I'd love for everybody in the audience to get out of the conversation tonight. One is that this ecosystem, employers, insurance companies, are looking for new and interesting digital health and insurtech solutions more than they ever have in the past. I've been in this business for a long time. I've never seen so much interest in the new ideas. The opportunity for everybody in this room is enormous. The second thing I want you to take away, though, is you need to learn how these people think, how they work, how they do business, how they make decisions, what their problems are. Speak to them in their terms, and those opportunities are out there. Hence the 22 months, so a little bit of background on that one. February 2018 right now. If you go in to sell a great new solution to an employer, or even an insurance company, they're talking now about their 2019 plan year, which means that your solution, February 2018, needs to be in place from January to December 2019. December 19 is 22 months from now. If you can't promise that your solution is going to be stable 22 months from now, you're challenged to sell into that marketplace. That's not the same change is good, quick pivot that a lot of startups are used to, but it's the reality of the world you're selling into. Those are some of the things I want to make sure that everybody in the room takes away from today. If you're selling into that employer, you're probably talking to somebody in the HR department, possibly the benefits department. More and more, because of the dollars that are up here, you're going to end up having to talk to the CFO. They're going to look at things very differently than the HR people. You may even end up talking to the CEO, depending on the organization. Now you have to talk about the people, the finances, and the business if you want to have that conversation go smoothly. Oh, going to see the whole thing at once. Good. So when I talk about the private healthcare ecosystem, employers really are at the center of it. They are the gateway to the B2B healthcare system in Canada. There are a lot of different people connected to that system that employers work with. We often think about the insurance companies, so the natural conversation is about the health insurance. There's also, in some cases, a separate disability insurer. There's a consultant or an advisor who's working with that employer. They have an employee assistance program. They have a benefits administration platform. They may work with a third-party administrator. And if they're a little bit more leading edge, they've probably got a wellness portal they work with. Depending on what it is that you can provide, and depending on the problem that any one of the people in this circle may have, you need to figure out your channel to get to that employer. Employers don't always want to buy solutions individually. They want to work with one of these partners who aggregates solutions to help them to select, to choose, and to put those programs in place for their employees. I'm going to skip through that one. So I often joke about, talk about the 22-month decision process. One of the things, just in terms of speaking their language, for an employer, for an HR department, for a CFO, for an insurance company, change is not a good word. Change is a bad word. For the people in this room, change is exciting. Change is what you're in business for. Change is not a good word for them. Now, having said that, we do have, a fair number of employers who've gotten a little bit beyond the, change is bad, we're not going to do anything, and are devoting as little resources as they can to trying to make that evolution move forward. Okay, so what I've seen over the last couple of years, there has been a substantial shift in wanting to do more when it comes to technology, HR, benefits, healthcare, wellness within employer organizations. Why the change now? First of all, employees are demanding it. Employees are consumers of healthcare. Everything else about our consumer world is technology-based these days. The healthcare system, less so. Employee benefit plans, even less so than that. There's an acknowledgement that employees are consumers of their benefits. They have expectations of the technology that they're going to see everywhere in their lives. Why not at work? And as many people in this room know, as we heard about people looking to hire new talent around the room during the intros, employers recognize that there's a battle for talent going on out there. If you want the best people, you can't be delivering them benefit programs from the 1980s, as one of the bulletin boards was read last week during the HRPA conference. And of course, this is really cool stuff. So I talk about employers as being in the middle. They are the ultimate conduit to delivering digital health solutions to employees. Insurance companies are the other obvious place that a lot of people try and talk. There's a couple of different components. We often think of the health side of the insurance puzzle simply because they're the providers of the health insurance and they're the ones who make the claims through. There is a big piece of the business around managing disabilities, which I'm not sure often comes up in conversation. They spend almost as much money there's almost as much money spent on disability insurance in Canada as there is health insurance. There's a huge area there. If you can help an employer, an insurance company manage disability claims effectively, give people who are on disability better access to care, there's a huge benefit there. There's a huge marketplace there. Insurance companies are desperately looking for solutions to help them manage their disability cases better. Employers are the clients of the insurance companies. That's why they're in business. They do what employers tell them, which means if employers are saying, I want you to find me the new solutions, the folks from Sun Life and others show up at events like this to try and help find those new solutions. The reasons why they're evolving are slowly coming up. The reality is insurance companies are competing for business to keep their employer clients. The employers are demanding these kinds of changes. And I won't put these three in order, but I think the last one has to be a really important part of this. The word disruption has appeared in the insurance business in Canada over the last couple of years. Who would have thought? That's not a word that they ever contemplated before. When you now have conversations about Amazon getting into the healthcare business in the US, and Apple talking about electronic health records, you've got some big tech players coming into this business, and you've got some insurance companies that realize they need to evolve if they want to survive. Okay, I'm going to go back through that one again. So Last slide. Doing okay so far for time? So I talked about the two key pieces I wanted everybody to take away at the beginning. One, this marketplace is changing and they're looking for the new solutions. The second is you need to know how to talk to them. What problem can you solve? There were about 8 different sets of parties on that prior slide looking at the ecosystem. Whose problems can you solve? Can you articulate the problem you can solve? That is the most important thing to having a successful conversation with anybody in that space. It's about them, it's not about you. The next 3 are ones that I often see some challenges with, which is knowing who the end user of your product is, who's paying for it, and who's making the buying decision. Those are not the same person. As opposed to direct to consumer, those are the same person. You could have an insurance company making a decision that an employer is going to pay for a service that their employees are going to use. That's 3 different buyers, 3 different stakeholders. They all are looking for different things. You have to understand the value proposition of each one of those if you're going to be successful. Speaking their language, whether it's just talking about plan years, whether it's talking about change, whether it's understanding that the conversation today is about programs that they're looking to implement in 2019. This is just part of the easier you can make it for the person on the other side of the table to know that you understand their business, you understand what they're looking for, and oh yeah, by the way, you've got the perfect solution. The more you can do that, the more successful you're going to be when you have those conversations. So, remembering those 2 key points, the market's looking for the solutions. You learn how to and know how to talk to them properly, find your channel and find the way to present your solution to their problems. Some people in this room, I've met with a number of people in this room. There's a lot of people doing it well. There's a lot more opportunity for even more people to do it better. So, thank you, and take questions. Yes?
What do you think chances are of seeing national pharmacare in Canada?
Chances of seeing national pharmacare in Canada. I would go into the long version, which is define the question for me a little better. I think we will see some form of national pharmacare in Canada in the next few years. It may not be what everybody thinks it's going to be. There are a lot of different models of national pharmacare. I could argue Quebec already has one. So the fact that prescription drugs were left out of the Canada Health Act was a bit of a mistake at the time. It was unintentional and politically expedient. We're the only country in the world with a national healthcare system that does not include prescription drugs. We're going to close that gap. How we close it and what it looks like, it may not look like OHIP Plus. Boy, tough question right from the beginning. Veronica?
So you said 22 months. That's
Yes.
the number to remember. So what can you do as TC Consulting to make it 15 months?
So it's one of the things about being creative. And so as much as, this presentation tonight to a group of people who are the ones building the solutions, I've done a lot of speaking to the insurance executives and having the same conversation. It's not all about you adapting to the way they work. They have to adapt to the way business of today works, which is it works on shorter cycles. It's not 6-month procurement processes followed by 6 months of contract negotiations for a 5-year deal. That's not the way business works anymore. They know they can't operate the same way if they're going to be successful in connecting with you. Understand where they're coming from. The ones that will meet you in the middle are the ones you want to do business with. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, Ben.
So it's interesting. So you said that so the companies need to adapt to you because it's so. I guess when people are building their platforms, it's not because I've always thought I guess it was about making your platform so that you can conform almost to them. So I was just wondering if you could speak like a little bit more about that. I found that pretty interesting.
Sure. So you can't force your customer to change for you. They have to be changing, and they have to sort of, again, meet you halfway. The fact that Sun Life has a digital health lab and they're looking to involve companies, that's the kind of halfway movement I'm talking about. So you do have to be able to work together. So like I say, you're still going to need to, and when you talk about technology platforms, you got a combination of things again. Sometimes you're actually going into one of their platforms. There's also a greater desire within the industry to now look at outside platforms that are basically removed from theirs. So you can operate outside as an independent platform that they're referring people out to, but it doesn't sit on their site. So depending on the model, if you can adapt, it makes it easier. If you can't adapt, you just need to talk about the right kind of model that allows you to survive without that kind of adaptation. Good question. Thank you, Maggie.
Thank you so much. You can pass that to Veronica, actually.